Hello, everybody. Welcome to Anime Sickos. It's the podcast for geniuses and the only podcast. And what we do on this podcast, well, obviously, we're going to take a look at the four pillars of modern misery, anime, gaming, posting, and jobs. I, of course, am Tom, an anime sicko.
I am Joe, an anime sicko.
Joe, I hear your brain is extremely bad because of Hell World, where you live.
Yeah, so the Hell Tower in which I live, which exists only to bring me pain and misery. So there's not supposed to be construction on Saturdays, Tom. We're recording this on February 13th, notably a Saturday. Tom, hell is continued.
The devil's real?
The devil is real. So what are my options? I could do the white person thing and like call the front desk as if like that's gonna change anything, which it won't. Or I can go upstairs. But if I knock on the door, I will come face to face with the devil. So like, what am I gonna do?
You're gonna just sit there and rot is what you're gonna do. But Joe, it's okay that your brain is melted and dead. It's okay. Normally on a two-person podcast, that would mean we couldn't continue. But no, because I believe you have a guest in the virtual studio today. Is that correct, Joe? Am I remembering right?
You are correct. Can that person step forward from the shadows dramatically?
Hey, sorry, that was me hammering. Do you need me to stop?
This is a therapy hammer.
Because if you came up and asked, I would do it.
She's just hammering because it's his hobby.
I'm gonna nail this episode. You know what I'm saying? All right, let me set down my hammer. Hi guys, it's Casey Toney. I'm so friggin' happy to be on Anime Sickos with the hot shots.
Hell yeah, that's a correct attitude.
Do anybody call you guys the hot shots?
No, I guess once you.
Once. Okay, cool. Sickos is over now. It's.
When you talk about us, you should be going through a ever repeating cycle of sickos, the boys of online, and then the hot shots.
Yes. Okay. Cool.
Casey, we gotta say thank you for joining us. It's a delight. We a lot of times we have people on and we do a little chatting with them beforehand on the internet. And folks, the chat logs between Casey and us are full of the most just depraved weeb shit.
It's fertile. It fertile.
Really is.
You can tell it was three individuals who were like, "Oh, this is a safe space. We can do it. We can do it. We can just unload."
So Casey, what's your deal? Pitch you. What's your
What's my deal? Oh my God. Well, I'm the kind of guy who can write Fujimoto in a group chat with no context and trust that people know what I'm talking about. Now, I am saying improvise. You can't nobody's an improviser anymore, right? That is no longer firmly a profession because it does not exist currently. But I am I guess podcaster. I'm on the show Neoscum, and I also edit that. I'm a professional freelance audio engineer and editor for a couple other shows. Hey Riddle on the HeadGum Network and Campaign Skyjacks on One Shot. And just out there making content every day, you know.
Yeah, you are a very professional doer of that because you informed us. You asked us so kindly and graciously to move recording time up 1 hour, and you're like, guys, and I'm so sorry about this, but the reason is that I just finished editing a podcast from noon to 7 a.m. So if you don't want to move the time back, I can still make it work. And I'm like, dude,
oh no,
huh?
Oh no, how are you doing anything? We recorded 2 episodes back to back once for Shovel Quest. And that was doing it and not even listening to our own voices on a loop endlessly. And I thought I was going to die. How do you do something for that long?
It's hyperfocus, ADHD.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, okay. Mine does that only for bad things.
Well, editing is the one thing where it's worked out for me. No joke. I mean, if I have a virtual background on Zoom right now, and if I were to aim my camera down and turn that background, if you saw my room, you'd be horrified. It's crazy. Because I will edit for just an insane amount of time, and Neoscum edits can take easily 20 to 25 hours. And yet it's like I have literally no clean clothes. Like this is not a hard worker, you know. I don't know. It's such a weird it's such a weird mental place to be in, to like be willing to like grind yourself to the bone for one specific thing, but then just like lay like a slug during like every other ounce of free time.
Right, because you are truly a brain in a jar at this point.
Yeah, like I was about to say that there's been no point in our lives where it has been less necessary to have clean clothes.
Right.
Yeah, this is a great time to just really let loose with all of your disgusting behaviors that you can either make up or didn't know you had.
So if I'm correct, if I'm understanding correctly, when you began your sort of podcasting journey, which what a thing to say, you were not like an audio guy who would like studied the craft. You like sort of picked it up as you went along.
Yeah, it was 100%. It was I moved to Chicago to do improv and acting, and lived with Mike and Gannon. Good. They're on Neoscum, and you know, my best friends. They were roommates when I moved to the city, and we wanted to do this podcast, and like we're all like performers, but none of us knew how to edit, and we didn't want to pay $60 an episode because we were all poor. So Mike and Gannon each did passes like on the episode, and I listened, and like one thing about me, like we're talking about hyperfocus and stuff and like ADHD, and one of those things is just how obsessed I get with tiny things that don't matter. Right? Like like in class, when I like in school, I was always the kid who like when you would have to do a very short, like you have 15 minutes to put together a quick presentation on Hungary or whatever, and you like just write a couple things on like a poster board. I'd be doing art on the poster board and trying to get the layout right and like the lettering right, and we would go last and I still wouldn't be finished. I would be scrambling, and it was like, why did I do that? And that's like totally, I listened to this episode and I was like, I don't know how to edit, and this is fine, but it is bothering me. Like there were like tiny things. I was like, I don't know how to fix that, but I will go crazy if I don't. And so literally like my editing journey, God damn it. But everything I learned about editing, like I taught myself because like I had a problem I didn't know how to solve, but I also like could not rest without solving it, you know? And that's been incredible. Like it's just absolutely laborious. Like I don't recommend learning that way, but it's that happened.
I mean, yeah, because one of the questions I didn't want this episode to go by without me asking, because it's something that I personally want to know because it interests me, is like, how come you learned at all the things about editing? Unlike me, where my journey was, I started out, I learned just enough to do a good enough job and was like, and I'm done. Seems to me like the answer is like you simply didn't have a choice.
Yeah, well, the thing is like Tom, like that completely could have been what I had done, and it would have been absolutely fine. But like I genuinely I don't know how to turn that off. Like I don't know how. Like I can't write like an outline for an essay, because I don't know how to turn off like the detail, like orientation, kind of like the very, and so it was completely that. And it's like this thing where, as opposed to like thinking of the big picture, like, okay, I have this hour and a half of audio that I have to cut into an episode. So I need to, as I go, constantly assess how long it is taking me to do a certain thing, and I need to rein that in or whatever. It's like, this sound effect that I built took me 45 minutes. Like there will be like a 5-second section of audio that's like intense, and it will take me like an hour. And I do that. And once you set the bar for that moment, you can't just suddenly not for the rest of it. Yeah, and it was like I would find myself in those traps, and I just had to like meet the hurdle and, you know, lose sleep or whatever. And then eventually it's like I started doing some freelancing, and then I got laid off, and it was like, all right, this is my shit. I'm going to watch anime, read manga, and edit podcasts obsessively all day long, you know?
I think that is a good segue to the big question that we ask all guests. Joe, do you want to do the honors and lay the big heavy one on our lovely guest, Casey Toney?
I'm ready
Sure,
for it.
sure,
Oh my God,
sure.
I'm
Let me stretch
waiting.
first. Casey, are you an anime sicko? You did just say some shit about how your life is only consuming manga and podcast editing. So I just want you to know that you can't fuck us that hard on this because you just said something.
Tom said before that there are no wrong answers, except before this recording he said there is a wrong answer. So I'm afraid this is entrapment. And if I tell you I'm just a friggin' nasty old anime sicko, just total like absolute. When you guys were talking about dumb baby bitches, I was like, oh, that is insanely relatable. Yeah, I'm an anime sicko for sure. I'm a sicko.
Okay, cool.
So here's when I knew that there was a wrong answer. We were talking about manga on that group DM, and you dropped two series that I never heard of. Then one of them was called Summertime Rendering, and I'm like, those are three words that make no sense. Like if you look at a series called Summertime Rendering, and I'm like, oh baby, that's for me, then you're a sicko, and there's no you're irredeemable at that point. You're no longer on that borderline. Yeah,
and you know what?
Yeah,
like
you have to see those three words and like want to know more.
And
which
also,
is a problem. Most people bounce off of it.
The thumbnail for that series in Manga Plus is just, it is so not representative of the actual series. And I think part of the reason that isn't super popular in the United States is because it is like this very dreamy drawing of like a girl with like blonde hair staring like wistfully toward the viewer. And it's like in the show, a dude is, every time he gets killed by these shadow things, he goes back in time, and like and it's like, yeah, that's not the like, that's not the series.
We can put a pin in this because I want to go back to it later. But for real, when you dropped those two titles on me and I looked up Summertime Rendering, it's two people on a Japanese small town island just sort of looking at you, and it's a nice sunny day, and it's called Summertime Rendering. And the little blurb is like, Shinpei goes back to visit his hometown after some time in Tokyo, but there's something unusual brewing under the surface. And I'm like, oh, there's probably going to be like some tension or maybe like a little bit of a scandal. No, he gets shot in the head in chapter 1, and you see it, and it's very gory.
They're really burying the lead on that. Like, I don't know like who they're trying to fool, because you learn it's not that like pages into the first chapter. I
would have put money down that like, oh, this is like a slice of life about like how small town living is like, there are some issues, but deep down it really is worth doing. And that summer that Shinpei spent back home really changed him. No, not at all.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. It's incredible. It's so good. Yeah, no, you know what? I just want to say I'm the kind of sicko, and I think in one of the reasons like I like your guys' show, and I like the way you talk about it, anime and manga, and why I get so hyperactive and rambling in that like group chat is just because it's like so rare to be able to talk about anime and manga with people that aren't gross. Like I mean, like I have my
people who, when you say this series sucks shit, they don't get angry at you. They're like, yeah, it does, I love it.
Yeah, like
yes.
I'm the kind of sicko who wants to like think I'm cooler than all these other people, and do think that, frankly, a lot of like, it's like I'm really repulsed by like half of anime and manga's fandom, but I'm also like deeply like obsessed with the medium. So I hope that's cool, losers.
I remember that feeling even like as a teen. I was like, this is so cool. Why do they have to be so friggin' weird about it, though?
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Like I remember in college, I was like, maybe I should be watching some of this anime. Like Cowboy Bebop's good. Oh, we just rented Akira from the DVD store because I live in the past. And then I would see the DePaul University Japanese Media Appreciation Club, and I'm like, that shit's for weirdos. That shit's for pervs. Bye-bye.
We're the anime sickos, and we're here to say anime is bad in a war crimes way.
Casey, we got important Chainsaw Men to talk about, but before that, I hear you got a bee in your bonnet about something. Take it.
Well, as of this recording, the last episode, you guys read this kind of trivia. I mean, so vaguely trivia book from 2000 about anime from Ryan Omega, right?
Yeah, Ryan Omega, who kicks ass. I really want to make it clear, we love Ryan Omega.
Oh, I sucked when I was 21 too. I get it. No judgment, Ryan.
Yeah, his crime is that he committed his 21-year-old self to a book.
Yeah, exactly.
But then he got paid for it, so
he got paid for it. Honestly, just listening to that was. I say nostalgic because there were a lot of series you guys are Fushigi Yugi and Marmalade Boy and all this stuff. That reminded me. I don't know if you guys did this. My shit in junior high and high school was I loved going to a couple of our libraries in Toledo, Ohio, where I'm from, and just sitting in the small graphic novel sections in one of the chairs in that section and just reading randomly the only volume of Blackjack that they have, volume 8, in the middle of the story, having no idea what's going on. There are so many random ass weird series that I just got a sample platter midway through the meal, and all that shit. I was like, wow, this is the kind of person who read one of those and then was 21, so he had the money to buy the import the entire series or some shit. You were talking about Ranma 1/2 is that was my thing. That was absolutely my thing in high school.
Yeah, when we made that episode, one thing we were definitely not expecting is for every single person on the planet other than us to be all this shit makes sense, dude.
Yeah. We really revealed ourselves to look, again, like idiots, because everyone was like, Ryan's right.
The Ranma question with that dumbass gotcha where he's like, oh, the hair in the manga is black. And I was like, yeah, well, the hair of the character on the cover of the manga is red. And by the way, also, the whole fucking trick to that is that his hair is black when he's a boy and red when he's a girl. And also, when it's red, he's going by Ranko. It's this whole fucking thing. Ryan, you're a good dude. You're a good dude. When you're 21, my man, insufferable. Yeah, that was the bee in my bonnet.
There's also an element here, which is I don't think you write this book today just because people can find you so much easier.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
But
yeah.
When was that published?
It was 2000.
2000.
That's prime time for just sending stuff out into the universe, and maybe it'll get grabbed by the internet. Probably not, though.
You know what? One thing I did think there, and I think this relates to Chainsaw Man because I think Chainsaw Man is so smart, and Chainsaw Man talks about quote unquote crude topics, but does it brilliantly. Is that when you guys are reading the stuff that was basically about sexual assault being made a joke and all this stuff, and you're like, oh, this is such a product of the time, and it was. But also I was kind of disgusted by how much the medium has not changed. It's you can read a thing like that and be that's heinous that they're making a joke of this, but I bet you over 50% of every new anime this season that has released is doing that same thing as a joke. Somebody is falling on somebody and grabbing their boobs. The boobs, somebody enters the scene and their boobs make a boing sound, and it the camera's just, it's just that's the kind of thing where I'm I'm a sicko to an extent, and then I'm disgusted.
Yeah,
sad,
that's why
man.
we can't get too angry at Ryan Omega, because you can't go well, he was a young dumbass and he didn't know yet, and also it's a shame that at that time it was just accepted to make that kind of cruel, crude humor. But you can't do it if there isn't raw material in the mine to make into that. It's very gross and crude to be which one of these babes has the biggest flotation devices, but the show the show lets you do that by
Yeah.
doing it on purpose. So like, here's a big platter of titty. Which one's your favorite, homie?
Absolutely. Man, yeah. Oh, boy. Oh, brother.
It's a gross book. It's a fun artifact, though. It's a good
Artifact. Yeah.
primary document.
Absolutely. You guys should read one of those, like, how to draw a manga books. Not like that's very fun to read on air, but...
Just for our own benefit.
That was definitely what I saw at the library. Like, that was like I didn't know what manga was, but I did see those books out before I knew what it was.
And it's like, oh, manga is where everyone looks fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's when you draw a girl with melting eyes.
Chainsaw Man is the best, folks. We talked about it before. Now it's over, and the ending was good as hell, and we're going to talk about it now. Casey, am I right when I say this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I do want to clarify. The ending, to me, is good as hell because there's going to be a part 2 as well. There are some things that, if this were the full ending, would have been, like, maybe not plot holes, but, like, just dropped. You know, and it would have felt really dissatisfying. But, like, now those things become hooks for part 2. And the ending of part 1 really was fantastic. It somehow went from the absolute most, like, painful, depressing places and brought the show back to, like, a fun, exciting place, which it feels impossible.
Yeah.
It was done in really a amazingly few number of panels too. Like, like the turnaround at the end was very economical.
It, oh my god, just for you listener who may not remember Chainsaw Man when we talked about it. Chainsaw Man is a manga about a garbage boy named Genji who lived in the dump. He got raised by trash, but then he became Chainsaw Man, and he's like, now that I have an office job, I'm gonna have happiness. Turns out, no. His boss was evil and wanted to take him over. But then at the end, he wins. There's more to it than that, but that's just the broad strokes so that you're not going like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Honestly, this is the point where you pause the episode, go read the entire series, which I'm sure you could binge in a weekend, and then you come back and listen to us because it's that good.
It is that good, and there's only like 99 chapters because Tatsuki Fujimoto, the author, is a fucking king who's like, I know what my story is going to be, and I'm going to say it. Oh, what? I'm a huge hit? Not going to extend the series. Not going to do it. Oh, what's that? These are the most popular characters. Too bad I wrote in my outline that they're going to die right away, and so now they are. They're dead now.
And that's something, like, I'm blown away because I've reread the series a few times. Not since it ended, actually, but I've, like... You know, in wanting more, I would reread up to, like, whatever the current issue is a couple times. And I'm amazed by the characters who ended up dying in under 20 chapters, but who stuck with me for the whole rest of the series. Like, death spoilers. Himeno, like, she dies early on, and that character was present in, like, the background of my mind when I read that story the entire time. Like, that's the impact they made. And, like... Other characters who die who are, like, even more important. I think it's so amazing the impact, like, Fujimoto can make these characters have in a short amount of runtime. Like, Joe, when you were saying, like, how economical he is with, like, his panels and, like, what he chooses to say, I can't think of a mangaka that, like, does it as well as him right now in that sense.
Yeah, that's not easy to do when the material is also, like, swimming in death. There's so much death happening on the screen all the time, and not just the heavy hitters you described or other characters. It's just like the period where fucking Santa Claus makes millions of dolls or whatever. Like,
Jesus.
Basically, a whole town gets killed.
And then there's like they keep on like introducing like new groups of guys, and this happens a lot in manga where there's like, hey, here's a new group of secondary characters, and if you read enough manga, you get to sort of understand what you're supposed to do when that happens, which is like, I'm gonna sort of take half notice of all these people, because I know that like the author is just sort of casting a wide net here for characters that are going to hit, and if one of these characters hit, they're going to become a main cast, and then the rest are going to be just sort of background guys. So that's what you're expecting. And you're like, okay, and then you like read a couple chapters, and you're like, okay, I feel like Beam is going to be the one that sticks out, and then in the next chapter, all of them die.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, all of them, huh? Everyone?
Yeah. I guess there is no rule that says you can't do an entire team wipe. It's just we're not used to seeing it.
It's like, it reminds me of like early Game of Thrones, before you started to just expect people to die, and then like later in the series when it got really shitty, like everybody had plot armor again, like a fucking standard fantasy story. But like Chainsaw Man, nothing felt off the table. There was a point where me and my friend Kylie, who is one of the only other people who I can like talk about at this level about like anime and manga, we would, when Chainsaw Man got like really interesting and out there, we would theorize just so much stuff and like throw all these like predictions out, and we'd try to be smart about it. We would use context from the rest of the series, and like the very next chapter, it would be like, oh, Fujimoto just dropped something that breaks everything. At a certain point, I was like, I'm not going to try to guess what happens next, because I'm wrong. I'm wrong. There's no way you can tell.
Yeah, and the thing that makes it a fucking masterpiece is, and this is something that a lot of idiot anime fans who don't understand themes and stories get wrong. The thing that Fujimoto does that makes this incredible is that nothing's off the table and you can't predict anything, but also everything you can so clearly tell. Everything is planned and everything has a purpose.
Yes.
People complain like,
yes,
Chainsaw Man sucks. They're killing people off at random. They're just killing off the best characters at random for no reason.
Yeah, the whole thing is filled with intent so clearly. There's a lot of intent in every aspect of it. So the argument that it feels random at times, like I don't gel with that.
No.
Like if it feels random, it's because it was intended to, because death comes for us all.
It's like the events themselves, and that's what I think is brilliant about it, is like any of these things where I'm like, oh, it's like shocking and you can't guess what happens next or something, but it never does those things like cynically because it wants to trick you. And once that thing happens, you're like, oh, of course, if I were smarter, I like, but it's like, oh, I'm too dumb to think like this fucking genius does who's writing this story. And like, it totally makes sense when it happens. You're like, yeah, that, of course.
When people say it's random, it blows my mind, because there are so many parts, especially near the end, where people turn directly to the camera and say the theme out loud. Like, there's one part where Denji is like, damn, I can't believe it. I thought I would get security and income and a job and everything would be good. But I'm still unhappy and I'm still empty. There's something so wrong with me. And then someone just turns to him and is like, buddy, that's everyone.
Yeah.
And it's like, what a fucking comic, folks.
Yeah. I've always thought like the thing, how I would sell people on Chainsaw Man, and because again, I told you guys this, that the first time I'd heard about it in like some manga thread, I think on like Resetera, and somebody was like, yeah, Chainsaw Man is like so try hard and edgy or whatever, and I gave it a try, and I was like, Chainsaw Man to me, the way it shows its intelligence by saying like, hey, I can say things that are smarter, or I can say things that resonate more easily and more effectively than almost any other series out there, but I can do it while on the surface seeming like dumb, you know, because you follow the story from Denji's perspective, and he's like, he is an unabashed like dipshit. He's this like wild child, like set loose with like a bunch of power. And like that moment, one of the things where he's like, when he's killing the monster in the like elevator shaft, and as long as he drinks the monster's blood, he regenerates. And for 3 days, he is just chainsawing that monster while it tries to kill him. And he's like, I'm a perpetual like energy energy machine. Or he's like, I should win the Nobel Prize or something, as he's like, it's so fucking good. And it's this dude just like spraying blood everywhere, but you're like, oh, sorry.
Yeah, because it's the solution to beat this monster, this demon, is to do the least self-preserving behavior for a very long time.
Yeah. And you have to be a dumb kid who got raised by the dump.
And only an idiot would set themselves up for this, and that's why it crits so hard.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of people bounce off at the beginning. Denji is like, my motivation is touching titties.
Yeah, he's really like, I
baby,
just want to touch a boob.
And it handles that very well. That's the thing. It's not the knowingly doing the trope thing that Casey had mentioned that is awful, which is like, boobs bouncing in when they walk in, like knowingly. It's like, we're doing it fun. It's like, well, it's still on the screen.
Yeah, this is rather like an idiot fucking baby man would think this. This is something that a moron thinks.
Yeah.
And you're right to roll your eyes at it because he's wrong.
Yeah. He's like one of my favorite shonen protagonists of all time, if you can call him that. Just because like every shonen hero is this like good-hearted, idealistic, self-sacrificing, pure character. And it's like, Denji is so simple. He's like on the surface, and he's none of those things, but he accomplishes all the things those characters would in his completely unique way.
Yes, he has the relentless drive of every shonen protagonist, but it comes from a very petty and like stupid place.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he has the like love for his friends and found family, except his found family is like dumb as shit and idiots, and also they all die. Like he doesn't get to keep any of them. At the end of the series, he's fucking alone.
Yeah.
But and here's the thing. Here's something that we both agreed on, Casey, you and I. Now I got to rewind a bit. We were on the A+ Anime podcast with our buddy Ian Preschel. We were talking about Chainsaw Man prior to it having ended. And I was so sure. I'm looking at the way the series is going, at the intent that is present in all these panels, and how the whole series is just about Denji's character development. The fact that there are fights and monsters and shit is irrelevant. It's all about Denji becoming a person.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is going to have an happy ending. I'm sorry to tell you. The ending is going to be happy. The ending is going to be Denji realizes, like, this is what it means to be a person, and finally I am one for the first time in my life.
Yeah.
The fact that some people are dead also, the fact that everyone is dead also.
That's a lot.
It's going to be a lot, but, like, it's going to be a happy ending. Like, that is what's going to happen.
Or, like, fulfilling,
I'm fucking
like,
right.
satisfying. Yeah. I absolutely, well, and that was the thing. It was, like, what I found throughout the series, I could never predict, but was that like Fujimoto has like a great sense of pacing and like ebb and flow and like tension and release. Like, think of how long there's the moment when Denji becomes like Chainsaw Man proper and is just that whole section, and you learn all those like crazy things about like Chainsaw Man like eating concepts and all this shit, and like it is for so long, especially reading week by week, it was like torturous. It was so sad and dark, and everybody you love was like everybody you really, at this point, the people who survived this long, you deeply cared for, if like you actually cared about this manga at all. And then out of nowhere you have like a couple of the funniest fucking chapters in the entire series with Kobeni, like where she's keeps tripping. She's at the fast food
story
restaurant.
of Everest. It's so fucking funny.
And then she's playing DDR, and she gets up for the first time. This character is just so tragic, and he makes her like play DDR at this like public outdoor machine. And she, for some reason, is like doing perfectly, and she's like, "What's happening?" And then she finishes, and it's like perfect score S+. And she's like amazed, and she like looks behind her, and Denji is already left, and nobody is around. It's like her one moment of victory in the entire series, and I'm just like, it's so funny, and it felt incredible because it was earned. And that was the thing. It was like all this stuff that is like falling apart. You have to believe that Fujimoto isn't doing these things to just manipulate you and make you feel sad. It is for a greater purpose. There's something coming, which is why I was like, yeah, I mean, I didn't know, but I was like, please, like, I think this has to like end on like a positive note.
And like rereading it again when it's like complete, like I didn't reread it again since it's been complete, but like just like you, there have been times midway through the run where I'm just like, to refresh my memory on everything that happens in this series, I'm going to read it all in one go, because especially when you read a series week by week, it's hard to like remember the themes that were set up in the early chapters. This series does such a fucking good job, especially since it's only like 99 chapters, of just like, you know exactly just what the arc is, because our boy is from the dump and he's not a person, and then he meets his boss, who is the devil of boss, who's like, I'm gonna be your boss and do whatever I say. And then the way he defeats her is literally by becoming his own person. Like not there's like silly fucking shonen power explanations, but I'm not joking when literally the reason he wins is because he becomes his own person.
Exactly.
And it's like, well, there it is, folks. This is what you...
And they lay that out. Like, once again, like you said, there's that whole thing where when he becomes like her pet, and it's like the only way he can get out of this is to actually make a choice, you know, and to actually like pursue something like for himself. And then you're like, okay, like, yeah, once that happens, it's like, that's his arc, right? That's like the series arc, and has been stated as like the goal to get out of this situation. And it happens in again, but it happens in surprising ways. I mean, like, literally the last chapter is insane. Like, what happens is just, I mean, did any of us see that coming?
I did not.
No. We've spoiled so much already, like, that if you're listening to this, like, I guess we can just like, he eats her, but as a human, not as Chainsaw Man, he like cuts her into pieces and
he makes a really nice dinner, guys. Like, he
really does. He's like Tupperware.
It's really nice.
He does meal prep. He has a bunch of like a bunch of trays for the whole week.
But
he
makes
explains
sense.
like what and why he used what parts of her. Like, everything about him is like very. He's very organized now. You know, he has a plan.
And also, he's like, I'm not doing this because I hate her. Like, I realize that this is the way to defeat her, and like, as much as I should hate her, like, I don't. And because here's the thing. There is an insidious siren call to being a capitalism cog and doing what your job tells you, because you do get a house, you do get your income. It does take away that terrifying choice you have to make every day because it's made for you. And it's like, it would be dishonest to say, like, yeah, fuck the control devil. Fuck that. I'm past that. No, that's part of humanity. It's part of the horrible brain we've all been given.
Yeah, there's comfort to being a cog. That, like,
Also, he has a crush on the control devil. There's also that element too.
Yeah. But he has a bigger crush on Power, who is gone forever.
Oh, well, that's like, crush. I wouldn't. I kind of love that it really is like, you get the sense that they're building towards that, and then it's like, oh wait, no, Power wants a big brother.
Yeah, they're family.
And Denji wants to take care of somebody and like be important to someone, and it's like, it's amazing. Oh, their relationship. Oh my God, I'll start crying if I think about it. It's
and they're so dumb together. They have no IQ. It's so good. I really enjoyed the sequence where they are being trained by I forget his name, the guy in the Columbo coat
with the scar. I know. I think I know what you're talking about, with the, like, when they're like, we're super smart or whatever. They have like glasses on.
They're like, put glasses on.
They don't wear glasses, but they put glasses on because in their head they're being super smart. Oh my God. Yeah.
And it's so cool because, like, it was the standard, like, anime thing where it's like the sensei is going to test you every day, but when they fail, they die. Like they get killed every day. It's so funny.
And like in like fucking Naruto or what have you, it'd be like, the way to defeat a stronger opponent is with advanced tactics. So they put on their glasses and they come up with some tactics. And he sees through it instantly and kicks their asses. And he's like, that was terrible. That was the worst one yet.
Yeah.
And oh god, and it's great because that character, I really love him. He's one of the few that survives, and I think that's good. I think the characters they had survive are not the main characters you would want to survive, but you can see how they would have a vital place in whatever part 2 ends up being. Yeah. And he is one of them, but like that whole section, it's like funny because he's like, ever since I was a kid, I broke my toys. Like I didn't know my own strength. I've always wanted toys that can't break. And he's training them, but he loves it because he gets to kill them and they don't die.
Yep.
Yeah. It's like it's, but they don't, again, another series would be like, oh, that's this guy's character trait. And you're like, no, that's just one element of the vast tapestry of this character. Like every single side character that feels rich and like detailed and expressive. Yeah.
The series does a nice job of early on establishing that like everyone you're going to come into is already like insane as a baseline.
Because like you have to be in it to be a public safety devil hunter.
And that's also why I have such a fondness for this, because the way he overcomes conflict in many cases, not for the last showdown which we discussed because he had to become a person, but like in general, the when there's a fight, it's like, Denji, what are you gonna do? And he's like, I'm gonna have to see if my IQ can get even lower. and it's so fun. Well, he just gets dumber.
Himeno says like right at the beginning, like you need to be crazy to beat the gun devil. And then that moment where he's doing the thing we mentioned in the elevator shaft, she's like looking at him with like ecstatic kind of thrill and is like, this dude might be insane enough to pull it off. And that's like that is entirely it. Whenever there is a challenge that is too impossible to overcome, Denji does something so absurd and stupid that he does overcome it. It's amazing. Yeah.
And I do want to say that I really appreciate how, like, we've been saying, like, all the Devil Hunters are insane. They're all wacky. A lesser series, and I'm going to name drop a lesser series right now, Black Clover. A lesser series, when they want to show that someone is crazy like that, what they do is they make it, like, carnival wacky.
Yes.
Like one thing that Black Clover loves to do is like have a villain like get hit with like a super strong attack and like have a huge wound, and you're like, well, I know what's gonna happen when I turn the page. They're gonna be like, ouch. And then you turn the page and they have this huge beaming smile and they're like, wow, now this is fun. And I'm like, huh? This guy's crazy. That's like the guy with the scars and the Columbo coat is crazy, but in like a very like quiet and like hollow way.
Yes.
He just like feels like when he goes home, he just kind of like sits and is quiet and eats out of a can and then goes to sleep.
Yeah, I mean, like, they are mentally ruined the way you would be from that. Like, you wouldn't be a howling madman. You would just be some weird husk of a person that is still good at their job, which is killing.
I think, like, Fujimoto with Fire Punch wanted to kind of deconstruct superhero mythos and wanted to, like, and not in that kind of Watchmen way. And I mean, like, Watchmen was good, like, but superheroes in the Western sense have been deconstructed so many times in like the exact same way. Like,
they don't really construct them the normal way anymore. It's a lot of like, what if Superman was golfing, and like it's just like I don't care.
And it's like Fire Punch did that well, but like it feels like Chainsaw Man takes that even further, and it's like, hey, what if we took this kind of setup that you see all the time in anime and manga, and what if we took these kind of broad stroke characters that you see all the time in anime and manga, and then what if I filled them in with incredible detail and richness and respect and authenticity? Like that's what gets me, is that like every character is very like big. They don't all like act big, but they have a thing, right? But
No one is a sketch. Everyone is filled out.
I could describe none of them in one word.
Yeah, which is also why I think it's a little hard to talk about plot-wise, because I'm so used to talking about anime and being like, oh, this character, well, they don't shut the fuck up about being the Wizard King.
Yeah.
That's kind of their deal, right? You can't really do that too much with Chainsaw Man, because even when Denji is doing that, he doesn't stay that way for that long, and everyone else is like a real person, despite, again... this is a world where you line up prisoners and cut their throats, and a big invisible fist smushes a guy on the other side of the planet.
Yeah. God, fuck. Like even like and another thing is like a lot of the, like you said, a lot of these characters don't actually do a lot. Like Aki, the character Aki, who is, again, you can't sum him up in one word. Like, if a lesser series would be like, he's the cynical mentor and like these wacky kids. But like, he is so much more than that. And also he grows and has an arc and changes, and his relationship with his mentees changes. But here's the thing. He has, I don't know, like maybe like 1/20th the amount of panels like Kakashi has in Naruto. He dies pretty soon. He doesn't have a lot of like star moments where he like kicks a guy's ass. He's not, when it comes just to plain screen time compared to other anime, he's just not in it much. But he's he would be the best character in any other fucking series.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like one of 5 equally good characters in this shit. And I think, one fucking thing about Chainsaw Man that's so great is because it's easy to call it a deconstruction, because it kind of is in that way, but at the same time, it just is a show. Like it is a shonen because it does everything.
Yes.
Like, what is a shonen?
Yeah.
It's going to have fights. It's going to have surpassing limits. It's going to have a found family. It's going to have the main character go through an arc where at the end they're a hero, and all of those things happen not in like a subversive, like, haha, I've twisted it way. Like, no, they just fucking happen. The normal way.
Yeah, and that is what I think makes Fujimoto just like such a brilliant author. I should say mangaka, because like, again, the way he uses like paneling, and his art is good, but it's not like the quote unquote like prettiest manga out there. But I think his layouts and everything, and the way he uses like visual storytelling is really smart as well. But I think he is so good at not like intentionally subversing, but just telling a story his way and not feeling beholden to certain tropes like that.
So
if I could also go back to what you said with his style, like visually, there's one element of Chainsaw Man that I think is worth mentioning, is that it doesn't look like a lot of manga, like in terms of its style.
It's like sketchy.
It looks very sketchy. No one's got anime eyes. No one's how to draw manga. No one's got those like melting eyes. And for that reason, I actually think it's a really cool recommendation to a manga agnostic person that likes rad shit.
Absolutely, 100%. Very easy recommendation in that sense.
Yeah.
So good. It's easy recommendation. Also, it's done. Don't have to read week by week. Also, it's short.
And it flies.
Yeah.
The pacing is incredible.
I have no sense of how short it actually is, because I was reading it as it came out, and it felt like years.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
And I think it was 2 years at least, right?
Yeah.
Is that what it was? Okay, yeah.
I think so. I think it came out in 2018.
I mean, but like, consider, I read fucking One Piece. I'm excited to read chapter 1004 tomorrow.
Oh my god. You're current? Are you serious?
Yeah. I've been current for like over a year.
Oh my god.
We're not going to talk about One Piece today. But with that in mind, like the fact that Chainsaw Man is so short whips ass, and also a lot of people complained like it ended randomly. Like, no, it's so, when you read it all at once, it's so fucking clear.
Yeah.
That all the beats were set up, and he just knocked all of them down until it was over. And then it's like, fucking bravo, you genius. Also, I want to just mention this real quick.
Yeah.
This is for those of you who've read it, my Chainsaw heads. When you were talking about his paneling and pacing and how good it is, the part where on Denji's birthday, Makima and Denji walk to the front door. All they're doing is standing up from the couch and walking to the door. And those panels like made me sick.
Yeah.
With just terror.
That and Denji opening the door, like when Aki was on the other side of it as like the gun fiend, like that. The tension for that, and then again his tension and release, which is just brilliant. It's like all of that tension, and then the door opens, and it's the sweetest image of Power looking like so innocent, holding this birthday cake with lit candles, like happy birthday Denji. And then the next panel is just her exploding in two pieces because Makima pointed her finger. You know what I mean? And it's just like a masterstroke. Like, really, like, I look at that and I'm like, this guy has such control over what he's doing and such confidence and such like clear purpose and intention. And you feel that like every single page.
This makes me wonder what you guys think about the anime adaptation. Do we have confidence that that's going to pull it off? Do we think that that's going to match the manga, or at least be its own thing that is of a sort of similar quality? Because I feel like directing a Chainsaw Man anime series that hits it the same way that the manga does is one hell of a challenge, and a lot of anime directors do not seem up to it.
I agree with it. I think it all hinges on the director because, like, again, I was talking to my friend Kylie about this. I was like, I think the way you make that work is if you have a director with a strong enough vision that they aren't just trying to recreate the manga. Of course, they are like following the manga and everything like that, but they understand that Chainsaw Man did things with manga as a medium that were really effective, and they have to not try to replicate that in anime. They have to have enough directorial voice and vision to find their own way to get across like a similar feeling and vibe and message. If you just get somebody who is going to like do panel perfect storyboards or whatever, it's gonna be good. You know, but it's not going to be impactful in the way the manga was. So I really hope, like, Mappa has, I think, really impressed me recently. I feel like they were kind of considered second rate for a while, but they have a couple directors there, and their team is getting bigger and better. So let's hope.
They did the Dorohedoro anime, if I recall, which fucking whipped ass.
It's good. I don't really like that. I don't know what to call it. 3D.
Right.
I don't know.
CG, like anime. Yeah.
I don't like it as a rule, but I thought that was a good series. I thought that handled it well.
That's what I mean. I was like, that was the first time I was like, hell yeah, this really fits. Like, this is fun. Because normally it seems just like a budget choice.
Yes. Yeah. And like, so that you don't have to worry about staying on model. But, you know, and I agree with that. If Chainsaw Man were 3D, I would be like, if that were announced, I would be pissed as fuck. But the thing is, like, they did Jujutsu Kaisen, which I don't think is like, I haven't watched or read a ton of that. I've read like a decent amount to have like an opinion on it. And I think it's not great, but I do think that show is really well animated, and has strong directorial voice at times. They have a guy there. I forget his name. He's a Korean director, and he did God of High School. And God of High School, I don't know if you guys watched that at all. The story,
I'm like halfway through.
Okay, the story falls to shit immediately. Like not immediately, but like halfway through. But
the story is there's a tournament, right? They fuck it up from the start.
Yeah, I mean, like, well, that's the thing is like they drop the tournament thing so fucking fast, but not in a good way. But the animation, that first episode of God of High School has so much character. And it's so kinetic and fast and fun, and the animation for the action is insane. I was like, if that guy directs Chainsaw Man, I have faith in Chainsaw Man. I'm not saying he's the only person that could, but
like I'm halfway through God of High School, and it has the similar sort of problem that Tower of Gods anime did, but sort of way worse, which is it's definitely adapting 100 chapters of manhwa in 13 episodes.
Yes.
So it's going at an insane pace that makes none of the beats hit and none of the characters hit. But there's one part sort of in the first third where our two main guys, Mori and Dewi, are fighting in the tournament, and the animation style switches from standard anime fighting to like animated calligraphy with like big splotchy ink splotches and those like brush strokes, and like that's how they're animated. And that if they can bring that kind of creativity to the Chainsaw Man adaptation, ooh baby, that's the good stuff.
That's
for me.
that's 100% what I'm hoping for. Like so fingers crossed. If they blow it, I will be really sad, because clearly we love the manga.
Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode. Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode. Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode. Sicko mode, sicko mode, sicko mode.
I don't know when to fit this in or how. Maybe me saying this right now is how it fits in. But I've been thinking about, like, we're talking about like sound and shit, and how I'll spend like an hour on like 5 seconds of sound and show. And I think of like Sakuga. You know, where it's like this one moment that's like, so they animated on the ones, and I'm like, I want like sound kaga or something. Like, I want like a term for when I go like fucking beast mode on like a very short segment. People don't seem to care as much about that. But I would be very blessed. Actually, honestly, I wouldn't mind talking. We don't have to talk long about it, but I wouldn't mind talking about, like, I would love to sound design an anime. I'm not even fucking kidding. Like, yeah, I don't know. I would love if somebody tweeted at me like, hey, this moment at 43:52, that was some good sound kaga or something.
That's such the challenge, though, for sound design, because the best sound design in the world is then not noticed, right? Like, it's so good.
It sounds natural.
It seems natural. So what I'm saying is, as far as reception for your efforts, you're kind of fucked. Like, it's not great. You should have picked fireworks.
Hold up. I'm thinking about this now. With this topic in my head now, I'm thinking about, like, well, what would apply? And am I wrong to think that the sound effect for the world from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I think that's sound kuga, because in the fucking manga, the world doesn't make a sound. Right. And in the anime, it makes such a unique and iconic and just instantly, like, stop everything and listen to this fucking shit sound that makes it, that makes the stand seem so goddamn powerful. Would you agree?
So I have watched JoJo, but not so much that I remember exactly what that sound is. But I think like JoJo is all about like striking poses and hitting these kind of not panels in an anime, but like tableaus. And I can absolutely see how, like, you want sound design that pursues a similar thing. And Joe, I know what you're talking about, because that was something I struggled with when I started getting good at sound design. Especially, I think the biggest area that comes in is editing content, because, like, one of the reasons it takes me so long is, like, I'm trying to make Neoscum like paste like a like narrative production. So I'm like cutting out like repeats in people's dialogue when necessary. I'm cutting out like ums and pauses and certain things, but again, never in a way that draws attention. That's like something that can like bother me, is like if all the breaths are cut or something like that, and it's like, oh, somebody doesn't sound natural. So I'm like inserting pauses into sections that I cut so that it sounds like enough time for somebody to close their mouth, like swallow. It's anyway, like those kind of things are invisible, and that is absolutely that concept. And general kind of sound design is also like invisible, but especially with something like Neoscum, I draw attention is because as an improviser, it's always been like, I want to yes and this moment. Like, how can I take this moment and elevate it? But also, if I'm going big on sound, I don't want to do it in a way that detracts. And I think that's what takes so long. And that's what I've gotten good at, thanks to me not coming from just a standard sound discipline, but me coming from a creative discipline and a performative discipline. And you know, in anime, you hear so many of the same exact sound, not just anime, like all sound design in the West as well. Like, how many times do you hear the same, like the kids, there's that one where the kids laugh and it's like, there's like this distinct laugh sound effect from like 1970 or something. Like the Wilhelm scream is one thing. If you're using the Wilhelm scream, it's because you're doing a throwback. But this sound is just because they're like, oh, hey, laugh sound, boop. And like, if I have to make the sound of a door opening, I'll pull like 6 different sounds of door openings and whatever else, and I'll blend them into like one sound that like feels specific and perfect for that moment. But also because it's a comedy adventure, it's like larger than life in certain ways, I have permission to get like creative and over the top and use non-diegetic sounds, you know? And that is something that I think in moments in anime that work really well, but then it's also something that in sound design I think is forgotten a lot. They're like, oh, hey, you can't add the sound of like a panther like roaring in the background of you know, whatever fucking kick or something somebody does, and like I'm like, you absolutely should like make the sound of an explosion when somebody punches somebody, right? Like,
yeah, because every I understand completely what you mean, because my brain works in a similar way, and what I see is, all right, you're editing this, and when you're editing for narrative and content, you have to make all these sort of like tactical choices, like I'm doing this for certain reasons, but then I get the sense that you also have the problem with your frontal lobe that I do, where like as you're doing this, you're just like, well, now we got to make a million little choices.
yes,
We have to. You have to. And the thing is, like, I wouldn't even know what the choices were in front of me until I went down that hole. Like, I can't see this at a bird's eye view, but I can get in the mud. And when I'm in the mud,
you're scrappy.
when I'm losing an hour of my life.
Yeah.
But this is good because it sounds like you've actually managed to turn that impulse, and you've like put, I don't know, reins on it, I guess. Like you're harnessing this creative power in like an intentional way.
Yeah, the way I see it is like, it's in Joe, the way you're describing is like there's going to be a wheel in your head that just starts spinning really fast. What Casey has done is he's attached a belt to that wheel that's then connected to a machine that creates shit people actually enjoy.
It's the one area where I found like value in that. And like my entire life until I was like 27 when I started editing Neoscum, like that has been a burden because it also makes everything. You want to know why my room is dirty? Like there'll be times where it's like, oh, I need to tidy up my room for an hour, and then it's like 8 hours later, I'm still cleaning my room, and it makes like everything feel impossible before you do it because you know you anticipate how exhausting everything has to be for somebody with a brain like this. And it feels like Neoscum easily could have broken me, but we were just successful enough, and I was having like I have so much fun with both performing on the show and editing with the freedom I have that it was like just enough to make the labor of it and the absolute like exhaustion of it worth it, like just barely worth it until I got really good at it, you know? And and it's completely, I think, because it's like I don't have a choice. It's how I have to work. And I found at least one thing in my life where I could at least like kind of get a like an off-label a positive side effect from this disorder, you know?
No, and I think that's why I like gaming as much as I do, because it's like one of the few activities where I think like my brain is the weirdness of it actually benefits it, because like you're making tons of micro decisions all the time.
Serotonin
and
boosts
there's
all
like
over.
no right, and like there's nothing in when I do my job, there's not like micro adjustments that I can do. But if I'm playing like a stupid fucking roguelike, I'm like playing, and then I'm like in my head I'm thinking like, I got this item, let's think about whatever item I could combine this with, and like I just do that on default anyway, so that's why it feels good.
Absolutely.
I am just intrigued by how this impulse links up with sound design, because I've done like a baby baby bit amount of sound design. Like I said earlier, I learned just enough to get by and was like, and we're done. At least for one of our earlier episodes, Sicko Shock, I remember we needed a transition noise to show that time had passed. And I ended up finding a whooshing wind, and then walking through leaves, and then like someone like hitting like a metal like bang 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 bang, and I like weaved them together, and it took me like an hour. And at the end, I'm like, holy shit, like that's the sound.
And the feeling, right? Like when you're done and you can listen to the whole piece.
It was incredible. It was so fun and fulfilling. But the difference between the two of us, Casey, is that when I did that, I'm like, wow, incredible. I don't want to do that shit ever again.
Right.
Fuck that.
Right.
And like you put music into Neoscum. I listened to some of the episodes when you were good, because as you say, it's a process. So I dove into the late half, one of the later arcs, and you put motherfucking music into that shit, into places where it makes sense and doesn't call attention to itself, but does definitely add to the feel. And man, what? That's insane. That's so fucking hard. How do you know when to do that? Like we did an episode of Shuffle Quest that had a original soundtrack, but it was like diegetic. I was like, and then a song starts playing, and here it is. And like doing that fucking killed me. The idea of like having to use your judgment to figure out when in the narrative music goes.
Well, and
how?
And the thing is, like, apart from just that, like, Joe, this applies to like invisible things. I think this is one of the most invisible things I do. Is like the music itself is big, and the music being good. Like, we're lucky enough that Chicago label Hozak Records, like, we have a deal with them. We can use like their entire catalog of sound as long as, you know, we credit.
Yeah.
And it's great because it'll be like actual songs from like the fucking 70s or like modern stuff, just like a huge swath of like indie music of every genre. It's awesome. That also makes the choices, like Tom, that in terms of the choices, that is something that takes forever, is just picking the right song. And sometimes I will spend all this time finding a song, placing it on, and I'll be like, actually, this doesn't fit. This section shouldn't have sound. But like, and that, you know, that's definitely one of the struggles. But like what I do in terms of like it being invisible is I don't just like place a song. I treat songs and like dialogue like choreography, and I very specifically time like when people say things to arrive on like beats and to associate beat changes and like dynamic changes within the music with ones within the scene, and I will adjust until I can make it that way. I will spread out time or bring it in. I'll make these things where I like, if I like showed you like one of these tracks, I could show you all the moments where I did that. But for the most part, it's like when people listen, it's like at the end of the day, I don't need them to know why they feel so incredibly satisfied. Like, it's like you just need to feel it. It's like, yeah, big cool sound effects are cool, but like bringing in sound on beats, having big like dynamic changes. One thing I rarely ever heard shows do, and this is one of the reasons I pursued this, is because like to me it made sense, but nobody else that I'd heard was really doing it, was like letting the music breathe. Like there will be like within a song, it will get to a point, and then the scene escalates and hits this beat, and then I bring the music up and let the chorus play for 20 fucking seconds. And everybody in that moment is like vibing because they have just heard something that has like lit up their imagination. And you got to give them time to actually process that and live in that moment and tie themselves to the feeling of that moment. And I love that. And I love like ending songs naturally. I will like cut music, and line up like waveforms and cut verses and shit like that to line up perfectly so that it ends at just the right moment, as opposed to just having it fade out or something like that. I'll have like, I get so obsessive about that. But that is exactly what happens whenever like Midoriya or All Might are going to do a Texas Smash. It's like exactly how it lines up with You Say Run. And that is the kind of shit that like I want to do. Like, I don't want to just like place a song. I want like, I don't know, man. I want your cells to fucking scream when you hear it, right? Like, That sounds so crazy, but I'm not kidding. Like that listening to it when it's done is, whew.
To me, it seems like we be talking about this constantly, but where it's just like you're allowed to put in shit that owns, and like you have identified what to you owns, and you have committed to putting it in, and to me that's a really admirable decision to make.
It's exhausting, for sure, but
yeah, I mean,
but that level of like creative freedom and allowing myself to like actually make work that I'm satisfied with, like just giving myself the permission to just obsess over something so that when it's done, I don't have to feel guilty, because I will feel guilty 2 months from now, if I listen back to it, I hear all the mistakes and stuff. Yeah.
I wonder, is that something you also experience when listening to your own stuff, where that thing where you can't turn off your brain and you hear all the decisions that you made or didn't made? Right. Okay. So you also hear that. Okay, cool.
Oh,
do you also
it's so
hear
hard.
that when you listen to
sucks.
other people's podcasts? Because man, oh man, I gotta tell you, I used to listen to podcasts all the time, but then I started making podcasts, and now I just can't. Like, there's a lot of podcasts I really enjoy, and I will like make time every once in a while, go out of my way to listen to a few episodes, and I'm like, damn, that ruled. I love this.
Yeah.
But then I just can't. Like, it doesn't happen to me anymore. Is that something you suffer from as well?
1000%, because it's like all I do is listen to podcasts and listen to them to such an extent, and it's just like I have podcasts I love, and I will, like you said, like I will listen to episodes like here and there and be very satisfied, but it is hard to turn on the drive to listen to podcasts like constantly, like I used to have like years ago. Like I'll listen to your guys' show every once in a while, and while I'm listening, I'm like, fuck yeah, and I'll listen to like a couple episodes or whatever. But I can't keep up to it week by week because I just can't listen to podcasts that much. I just fucking edited for like 20 fucking hours, like if you count the pre-work I did, and like and it's just like, I don't want to have a podcast in my ear right now. Like, I just want to listen to rain sounds in my bed while I play Switch or something,
My most listened to podcast of this year and probably last year is a podcast that just has thundering rain sounds on Spotify. Like, it's every episode is a different looping calm noise. One of them is spaceship going through a wormhole, which, like, listen, asshole, you don't know.
Yeah,
that might be not calling.
Like, yeah.
Is this a good time to transition to talking about something that we've uncovered in our group DM that I've put a name on?
Ooh, I'm excited.
Which is media gridlock. This is something that I especially experienced because I started reading Summertime Rendering in the midst of also consuming a ton of other series, which is like, we're in pandemic world. We live in hell. This sucks, and we're trapped. And it's actually, we're lucky to be trapped because some people have to go out into the hell.
Yeah, man.
But we're in the trapped hell world, and the screen is more prominent in our lives than it has ever been before. And the one sort of solace that we can gain is like, well, the screen also shows cool shit we like, so I'll simply look at more awesome shit on the screen. But it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen because I'm like, here's 10 things to read, and that's too many things, and I end up reading 0 things. And I'm feeling like that's similar to how our brains just won't let in more podcasts because the intake valve is full already.
I have a new nighttime ritual where I just lay on the ground face down with the lights off, and I don't look at the screen. And
is this true?
The best fucking part of my day, because I
could
do
see.
it. I fucking do it,
Yeah.
and it helps. Because normally I'm either looking at a screen or getting ready to look at a screen. That's like the thing. Even if I'm not fucking looking at a screen,
You're getting ready. You're
I probably have notes I'm writing in anticipation of screen time.
Yeah.
So I got to, and I could do this on the bed, but it's got to be. I sleep in the bed. It's got to be face down on regular ass carpet.
God damn.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Like even when I meditate, I use Headspace, so I'm like looking at the screen before and after. I do this like intentional meditation. So that sounds like like what an interesting idea. Just to like, all right, I'm gonna shut down. I'm on the fucking floor. Like
that is fundamentally for me the inherent insanity of everything being an app. Like we're gonna fucking make meditation an app. It's like you're plugging in the solution into the problem machine. You fucking devil.
Like, Casey, you got me to read in Summertime Rendering, and I got to tell you, it is an incredible series. It's really, really well paced, and there's a lot of suspense. And the premise is just so cool because it's, this time loop story where he has to solve this paranormal mystery where only he is remembering the events. But then every time the loop occurs, he starts later in the day. So there is also a ticking clock on top of the time loop. And he has to remember everything that happened in every day because each sort of set of variables gives him information about what would happen, what could happen, and what is and isn't possible. And I'm reading this, I'm like, damn, this is dope. And I read it just because you said it, and I'm like, I'm going to give it a shot. And like 5 chapters in, I'm like, this shit is going to completely disrupt my plans for the next month because I know that if I don't keep up reading Summertime Rendering, I'm going to forget important parts because it is so intricate. And also, I was supposed to be reading JoJolion right now, but also I'm supposed to be reading through Jujutsu Kaisen, but then also I'm supposed to be watching Psycho-Pass Season 2, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's the feeling, right? That is where it becomes like a task.
Yep.
And you know what? Like what
I'm cheating on JoJolion by reading.
Yeah, exactly. What I find especially tough about like this kind of gridlock and why I don't like the concept of backlogs. Like I will have a backlog, but I don't like. People will talk about like with games and stuff. Like you'll see people be like, "Hey, what's in your backlog?" And I mean, like, oh, just games I haven't played and want to play. I'm not going to put that on a fucking list. That I have to like itemize and like check off. Like what a nightmare. Because and that's the thing, right? It's like you'll have that gridlock, but you won't want to consume any of those specific things at that moment. You just don't know what you want, but you have a million options that are dissatisfying. And because none of those feel like they would be fulfilling to consume at this moment, you then feel guilty that you're not like doing the work to continue like a specific thing. And that's like every single day.
I am incapable of keeping a backlog and not viewing it as like recreation debt. Like I just I'm serious. I love that. Just think about like all these games I haven't finished, and it's like I don't do that because I already know I didn't finish them. What's putting them in a fucking list gonna do? It's not gonna make me go play them.
Right.
This ties into something that we've been a concept that we've been developing for our podcast, but I think it can go for all of life. Which is don't give yourself homework.
No homework.
Like I don't want. If I'm getting homework, I want my teacher to assign it. I actually don't want my teacher to assign homework. But that's the only person whose assignments I'll respect is teacher. But like for shit like why don't we offer Patreon rewards? Because that's extra work, and like people said that they would donate without rewards, and we'll take them at their word. And we don't have to do any more homework and shit like that. And like, why don't we stream regularly? Like, because that becomes homework.
Yeah.
So we'll do it whenever.
Like we will do it. The trick is to finding out how you can do things with like intent and planning and execution while also not turning it into a big albatross. It's possible. It's not easy to do. We are certainly not encouraged to find that middle distance. We live in hustle hell.
Yeah, we've been developing this for like a year, and I still feel like I owe it to JoJolion to finish it. I owe it to Summertime Rendering to finish it, and like I know that this is gonna weigh on me and be homework. It doesn't matter that I know that; it just happens. It just is. And but fuck, just knowing about the concept does help.
What is such a challenging, sad aspect of life, at least my life with poor executive functioning, is just like I will get into those gridlock moments where like there is nothing that will satisfy me a lot of times, just because of the pressure of all of these different things, like suddenly something has to be better than all the rest, but then it's just like, oh, well, this would be a good time to do some laundry. And be like, nah, I think I'll just lay. I think I'll just try to not exist. And it really is like, sometimes when I think about like being a sicko, and you guys talked about in Dumb Baby Bitch episode, that's it, right? Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And like, I said saying that right, like I didn't know the pronunciation. But like,
it's a bitch. I never heard this before.
You guys like said something which was you're like, oh, some people don't experience this. Some people will like be cogs, but be good at it. And like, maybe not like satisfied, like at an existential level, but they know how to make something satisfying enough to like continue doing that thing without like great distress. And that to me is just like crazy. And
those people can't teach you how to do that. That's what sucks.
Right.
There's nothing they can do to be like, oh, I notice how life, whenever there's an opportunity, things just get fucking stupid and worse. Well, here's what you need to do, and it won't happen.
Make a list.
No one can do that to you. You're just
fuck your list.
Asking them, Joe, asking them how to teach it is like, if I were to go up to you and I was like, hey, Joe, I really admire this skill that you have. I'd like for you to teach it to me. How do you keep your arms from going purple? And you're like, what? Like, wait, what did you even say? Like, your arms are doing what? It's like, yeah, you know how your arms go purple? And it's like, that I can't conceive of what you're asking.
Well, but then the thing is,
that's why they can't teach it.
They like in a situation like that, the equivalent would be they feel obligated to answer, because suddenly they feel like there is some sort of triumph in them being able to do that and you not. There is some sort of greater will.
Yeah, they're like, oh, I don't know. For as long as I remember, my arms haven't been purple.
And you're like, oh, well, hey, I tried that thing. It didn't help. And they're like, well, try harder. Yeah.
This is an anime podcast,
This is an
folks.
anime podcast.
Ever been horny? Ever been horny? Don't tell the paper that I ever got horny.
Folks, to me, good episode. The thing about all of our brains is that they're fucked and we're suffering, but at least that it's funny content for you. I got to thank our delightful guest, Casey Toney, for joining us today. It was a privilege and a pleasure.
Oh, same here, guys. I can't tell you how much relief getting to just espouse about anime and shoot the shit with you guys has been for the past like hour and a half, for real. So thank you for having me.
Casey, if folks out there say, this guy sounds interesting, I want to know more about him. What is this podcast that he's doing that sounds so obsessively engineered with all these sound effects and music? That sounds pretty cool. I want to listen to that. If such a person were out there, what would they do to then put that shit in their brain?
Well, if you're a fan of Soundkaga, then you can listen to the podcast Neoscum. That is one word, Neoscum. Yeah, I mean, you can find it like all the fucking places you find it, and neoscum.com. We got a Twitter account, and a Patreon and everything. But
I gotta just break in right here real quick. So on neoscum.com, this is an RPG podcast that's been going on for a long time. And folks, that might be a little daunting for you. It was daunting for me. I wanted to listen to some before we got this episode because it would be rude of me not to listen to Casey's magnum opus, even though as an RPG podcast guy, listening to RPG podcasts is torturous to me. But what they did, and I fucking can't speak highly enough of this, is on their website, every one of their arcs has a little button that you press and it goes to the beginning of that arc. And then also, before the arc begins, there's a little voiceover that explains the plot up until what's about to happen. So you can just listen to whenever.
You guys really cracked the code there because because an actual RPG podcast is, and I've said it before, one of the most unfriendly, aggressive things to get into as a new person. You're like,
oh,
well,
trust me, we know.
Well, what do? We have to start at the beginning when they don't know how to roll dice,
and their audio editor doesn't know what the fuck he's doing too. In certain cases, when people listen to episode 1, they're like, "Well, why do people like the show?" And I'm like, "It's like it is a different show. That is a different show."
Anyway, sorry to interrupt, but I had to sing those praises in particular because, oh man, what an experience.
You can go to neoscum.com/starter, and that's the page where not only do we have like those arcs listed and links to the episodes, but it is actually just like a quick starter page for people who are new to the show and want to have a little bit of context on the characters and what the show is. neoscum.com/starter. Also, we do have one episode that is all of those recaps put together, like up to arc 10, which is like as of a few months ago. So you can listen to an episode if you want that's like 45 minutes long of our GM Ganon just explaining the story of Neoscum. But he does a good job. He makes it fun. But also you can hear me editing other shows such as Hey Riddle Riddle and Campaign Skyjacks and some other projects here and there. And you can find all those on my Twitter account. Casey Pony, CASEYPONEY.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Let's rewind. Let me replace that with something else.
No, you gotta leave it in. You leave it in.
Sounded, you sounded like the best line in A Christmas Story when Ralphie is waiting for the line to get up to Santa, and like there's a kid in front of him who's just like, yeah, Santa's really cool. I like his elves. I think they're really neat. And he's just like, yeah, man, that's cool. It's the funniest delivery.
Well, it's getting left in now, folks.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening. Thank you again to Casey Toney for joining us. Until next time, we've been the Anime Sickos. I'm Tom, an Anime Sicko.
I am Joe, an Anime Sicko.
And I'm Casey, an Anime Sicko.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to Anime Sickos. I've been Tom, a sicko. You can follow me on Twitter at TomHarrison19. Joe is also a sicko. You can follow him on Twitter at ShariaUncle. You can follow Anime Sickos on Twitter at Anime Sickos or email us at animesickos@gmail.com. Please leave us a review or something. I don't know. Tell a friend. Anyway, until next time, bye.